of money yet, where they're buying cars, importing Bentleys, importing, Mercedes-Benz, importing exotic, lifestyles, moving money out of the country into foreign accounts and etc. And this is the very same money that we need in our own country. My appeal, therefore, to the business community is, when you make money in a country, please invest it back into that country. And let me be very specific, because I know the South African market is very sensitive. They don't want their things spoken. I can speak on behalf of Zimbabwe. We have our own millionaires or billionaires in the country of Zimbabwe. To mention but a few, Strive Masiwa with his telecom companies, my Honorable Kudata Gwirei, the Honorable Grace Mugabe, and other Honorable Obet Mpofu, and all these billionaires who are in the country of Zimbabwe. You cannot be sitting around your house and looking at this development and ignore that while you are busy building your splash houses and importing things from France and in Germany, and yet the resources of your own country are being sold to foreign investors, when you also have the same amount of money. I think what is lacking is a science of changing a country's narrative. And it begins off with identifying key strategic resources, key strategic industries, and then invest your own money, or buy these investments, or buy these properties. Then work with the universities and work with the government, as it were, to import the science and the technologies that are needed to improve these resources, and creating jobs, and beginning to influence the political, economic, and global conversation on the economic development of Africa. And so it is critical that every country identifies its billionaires and millionaires, and then let them respond directly to the resources in that country. It would be very nice that the Zambian billionaires, including His Excellency Hachilema, that invest in the copper industry, own it as a country. Congo billionaires invest in cobalt, gold, and the other 126 minerals that are in your country. Angola, the billionaires in Angola invest in your oil. The billionaires in Sudan, Egypt, and Uganda and Ethiopia invest your money into the Nile River, which is the bloodline of the great desert area. So goes for Nigeria. Stop exporting oil in its raw form. Invest in the oil industry and begin to purify that raw oil into all the products that the world is looking for. Kenya, your cocoa and your teas, and the list is endless. And Africa is a huge resource of raw material. But it can never be right that the African leaders and the African billionaires are thinking that becoming a billionaire means buying aeroplanes and flying to Europe and flying to Middle East and flying to China and America to experience and enjoy your money is a correct way of enjoying money. The right way, in my own small little world and in my own small little poverty line, will be to say, when you have made money in a country, try and take that money, secure some key strategic resources, key strategic minerals, agricultural, water, whatever products that we have as raw materials. Invest your money into those things, link up with those that can find you the science, secure these products in your hands. You are buying the future for us as a country, as a continent. And for many people who might not understand the value of land, this is where I need to start being very clear, so that as young children and young people out there and fellow comrades, and you can begin to understand where I'm coming from. That if we should begin to talk development, we cannot talk development without the means of production. And the critical means of production actually is land, because from land we have our water, from land we have our trees, forestation, from land we have our roads, from land we have our housing, from land we have our mining, from land we have our culture, from land is everything. There's only one ministry that is important, and that is the Ministry of Lands. And a country and a people that do not own their land, they cannot be talking any economic infrastructural issues, because even banking itself, it is founded on land. The surety they're talking about, the immovable assets they're talking about, it is all based on land. And therefore, every revolutionary, whether it be a PF, or whether it be democratic development, or whether it be MDC, whether it can be EFF, it can be ANC, it can be DA, it can be SWAPO, it can be all the political names that you can come up with. Unless the main drive of those political organizations is securing first the land into the hands of the state, into the hands of the traditional indigenous leaders, into the hands of the local community. There is nothing we are talking about, because many of our politicians, if not most of them, are actually in cahoots with the colonial systems, and they secure properties for this colonial system at a kickback that is coming to them and their own families as they have become sellouts of the very resource to their own people. So we cannot begin to talk about Africa going forward when it does not have the means of production. Our weakest link is the educated community and the politicians, because when we secure the land, like what we did in Zimbabwe, the next bus stop that is important, it is to activate the academic institutions, to activate the research institutions, to say now we have the land. Question number 2, what is on the land? What is on the land? And how do our universities and technological institutions begin to train students who can respond to the government asset that we now have, which is land? Therefore, taking away land from white people is not a bad thing at all. It's a beautiful thing. But when you have the land, the question is, what is on it and what are you going to do on it? You cannot give land to a soccer player, or give land to a DJ, or give land to a retiring politician who does not have an interest in what is found on his land. If the land is an agricultural land, the land is safer in an agriculturalist. Therefore, the universities must begin to produce the agricultural students who can respond to the agricultural land. The universities must produce the mining and engineering students who respond to the mining and resources that are in the land. The universities must produce the farming students who can respond to the coffee that is on the land. The universities must produce the business people that can respond to the oils that are found on the land. Therefore, our weakest link right now is the educational institutions, because they are not producing the student. They are not producing the manpower that can respond to the Zimbabwean ownership of land. Because yes, we have the land, but what are we going to do with it? And if we are not careful that we take land, like South Africa, you take land away from the white people, yet you don't have farmers that can work on the same land. It's a recipe for poverty. You cannot take away land, and then you take away land, a platinum land, prime land, and someone wants to use that same land for building a few townhouses on the land. It's not productive. It is not progressive. It is not developmental. So we need to start looking at how do we connect all these dots from the resource to the education, to the banking institutions, to the community itself, to the export market, and finally talking the GDP and development of the country. It is therefore a missing link that is quite critical, because until the government institutions begin to understand itself in terms of its own strategic objectives, what do we have as a country? What do we have as a government? And how do we begin to beneficiate and improve the resource that we have, so that this resource can create jobs and improve our economy as a country? We will constantly be thinking that our resources and our future belongs in the hands of the colonial system. And as far as I'm concerned, that is far from happening. We need leaders who can begin to coordinate a well thought through pattern of economic, communal, community, social development strategic plan that responds to the skills that we have, our skills basket, our resource basket, And of course, that will respond automatically to our export market and our GDP in terms of developing our infrastructures and other issues. When the Chinese buy a mine for 422 million and they put a small little road, put a small little school and a clinic, and they say they've developed the community, I don't call that development, because the clinic that they've built it is for treating the people that are actually within their own community. The road is for moving their own goods to the place that they want. Therefore, we need to start thinking progressively so that we can develop our African continent into the continent that we want it to be. And yes, I am now in Zimbabwe full time, and this is the conversation that we're going to be having with the government and private individuals, and see how best we can begin to beneficiate our own country and grow the resources that we have and secure the future for our children. We are only safe when the parents plant